Hi, I have some new information, some new content on the Moodle site that I want to walk you through. You can see I'm at the top of the page. And if I scroll down to Project 1 Sprint 2, weeks 6 and 7, I've added three items. One is called Strategies for Writing Week. Another one is a link to a sample document rating form. And then the final one is a sample of student descriptions and definitions, that is, student technical descriptions and definitions. And these two items here, the rating sheet and the sample student writing, is meant to give you practice at looking at these draft descriptions and definitions through the eyes of someone who needs to evaluate them. And other students have told me that this process is really helpful in terms of sort of remembering how the work is going to be evaluated, and then seeing what other students have done and what the strengths and weaknesses are in the student samples. So that's, I'll come back to this in a second. I want to start with strategies for this writing week, just to remind you that writer's block can occur if you try to do everything polished right from the beginning. Some people are oriented toward perfectionism, and if that supports productivity, that's fine. But if you find yourself feeling as if everything has to be perfect word by word and sentence by sentence before you proceed to the next word or sentence, if that doesn't work for you, then you want to be mindful of alternative ways to approach your writing. So, for example, what we call rough writing, or this is even pre-drafting, where you're just brainstorming and giving yourself time to just throw ideas out on the paper, whether they're any good or not. It kind of loosens up the brain and enables you to get the ideas down on the paper. Rush writing is a timed event. You sit there for 5 minutes. You set a timer for 5 minutes, and you don't have to write quickly, but you write continuously for 5 minutes about your topic. Well, the technical definition for Google Glass is, and then you write it down, even if it's choppy sentences and poor spelling and all that. The point is, if you get rid of that editorial voice or that critical voice as you're writing, at least early on, that frees you up to get some ideas down so you can see what you're thinking. People also tell me that during the 5 minutes they go off on ideas that they probably would not have explored further if they were trying to be careful and correct. So this is just another kind of brainstorming. Mind mapping is when you map out ideas and you draw circles and arrows and you visualize your description or your definition. Put the main idea in the center and then draw arms out with circles. You can see examples of this in Chapter 6 about brainstorming and mind mapping, and you'll see, you may find that that's especially useful if you are visually oriented. Finally, talking. If you have a roommate or another person that you can talk to say, look, here's what I want to do. I'm basically talking about the functions and the parts, the major parts and the minor parts of Google Glass or whatever the wearable is. And what I want to say is, and then you go on and you talk about it. And that's just another alternative way for you to get ideas out there and see what you think without having your mind full of anything negative or anything critical about what you're thinking. Then, of course, you have to move into more coherence, at which time you're outlining, adding claims about your device or the concept, thinking about evaluative conclusions. And once again, if you get stuck, thinking visually instead of verbally might help. So what image are you going to look at? Or what image are you going to include? And then what can you write about that image that will get you going again? And don't forget to add a caption for all images. I've added pages 121 and 126 as additional ideas for writing prompts, their questions, or their parts of the documents that you can think of. And those pages list those one by rhetorical situation. As you know, in terms of the rhetorical situation, I'm the one who's going to use this to evaluate the depth and breadth of your understanding about the genres that you're writing in, and then about the level of detail of knowledge about the devices and their applications in your field of interest. Then finally, at the end, now you're very meticulous. Now you're looking at that, what's the best title, and how should the headings be arranged, and you want to make sure everything's styled, and you want your works cited to be complete. Whereas if you're trying to think here at the beginning, if you're trying to think of just big ideas or main ideas, you don't need to be concerned with the works cited and the formatting of that there. That would get in the way. So here you're adding the details and you're proofreading your work, of course, and preparing it for final publication. Also added just today is the RIT 3562W sample document rating form. And when you go to that form, you'll see instructions. It gives you several features to look at: focus, analysis, sentences, sentence clarity, and genre or structure. And what I'm giving you are 3 example definitions and 3 example descriptions, asking you to rate them, whether or not each one is sufficiently focused or approaching sufficiency or is sufficient. So, for example, if it's insufficiently focused, maybe there's some, a little bit of attention to one primary topic, but then it goes all over the place. So it would be insufficient. Or if it's mostly focused, but there are a couple of examples when the writer seems to lose focus, then it would be approaching sufficiency. So we're talking basically about levels of consistency for each of these criteria. Analysis. Does the author make claims and support the claims with relevant information? Does the author include facts on top of the claims to support the claims? Sentence clarity. Are the sentences clear? You shouldn't have to reread sentences in order to understand them. The grammar and the punctuation should be correct. If there are just a few errors, it would probably be approaching sufficiency. If there are lots of errors, it would be insufficient. And then if there are just maybe 1 or 2 errors that really don't get in the way, you could consider that sufficient. It's mostly, the presence of an error doesn't mean that the document is useless. But if there's a pattern of error and that distracts you and draws a lot of attention to itself, then that would be a lesser score. For structure, we're looking for orientation at the beginning, and then topic sentences, and then good transitions, so that it's clear that you're following the genre structure for each document. So what this does is gives you a chance to read through the 6 documents. I'll show you where they are, and just to practice thinking about these criteria, because these are the ones that I'll be looking at when I evaluate your work. I'll be looking at some other ones as well, but I didn't want to overcomplicate matters. So here then are the sample student descriptions, and you should be able to open these. You need to be in your, your UMN Google account. And when you get here, you can, for example, open these up, and then you will see this is a student writing sample for evaluation purposes only. Semester by semester, the requirements for documents change, so this one might not be as long as yours will be because those requirements have changed. You might see that they're not styled appropriately, or they might be, and that's just because the requirements for styling are relatively new for this course. So please review this material, and I mean, I think it's really good practice for thinking about how to format, style, and draft these two important documents.